Forget everything you think you know about manifestation. There's a hidden quantum principle that reveals how to create your desired reality with unbelievable ease. In this video, we'll expose the profound interconnectedness of thought and reality, giving you the key to effortless creation and a life beyond conventional effort. Imagine standing at the edge of possibility, not as a beggar pleading with the universe, but as a composer hearing the symphony before any instrument moves. No strain, no bargaining, just a precise alignment that turns the invisible into the inevitable. To understand effortless creation, we have to start with a difficult truth. Effort can be a mask for doubt. When the mind pushes harder, the field hears what's beneath the push. The story of not yet, not enough, not me. So tonight, we step out of that loop and step into the quiet engine room of reality, where outcomes are authored by what you are, not what you wrestle with. We live in a culture that worships friction. The louder the grind, the more heroic it seems. But in the subtle mechanics of manifestation, trying harder often damps the very signal that delivers results. Think of a radio dial jittering between stations. More twisting doesn't make the song clearer. Stillness and precision do. In the quantum neighborhood, force is noise. Clarity is power. Work harder is a useful story in linear tasks. Lifting weight, washing floors, writing 1,000 lines of code. But creation, as we mean it here, isn't the stacking of bricks. It's the selection of worlds. There's a difference between building the bridge and realizing you were already on the other side. Effort has a place, but as a consequence of alignment, not a substitute for it. Hustle culture smuggles a hidden confession. I don't trust the connection. So we fill the silence with activity. We equate exhaustion with progress, forgetting that progress is not what time you went to sleep, but how clean your signal was while you were awake. The paradox is simple and sharp. When you over-identify with trying, you reinforce the identity of a person who doesn't have, and the field, exquisitely honest, mirrors the identity it receives. Effort can be beautiful when it flows from certainty, like a river running downhill, inevitable. But when effort is used to correct an inner misalignment, it becomes sandpaper on light. The more you rub, the dimmer it shines. You don't polish sunlight by scrubbing the sky. You let the clouds move. So the first unveiling, the universe doesn't respond to volume. It responds to coherence. If the voice is loud but the frequency is fractured, the echo returns as static. If the voice is quiet but tuned, doors unlatch as if by memory. Effortlessness is not the absence of movement. It is the absence of contradiction. Linear thinking imagines life as a line, past behind, future ahead, and effort pushing the present forward like a stubborn boulder. But the quantum view offers a different map, not a line, a field, an ocean of potentials. Many futures coexisting as songs waiting for selection. The selection is made by observation, but not by sight alone. Observation is your total state, focus, meaning, emotion, identity. The observer is not an eye. The observer is a frequency. This is where the so-called observer effect becomes more than a lab story. When something is observed, it resolves, possibilities narrow. A haze becomes a point. But the observation that counts is never just looking. It's the way you hold reality in your being. The mind can say, I choose abundance, while the nervous system whispers, "I am not safe." The field listens to the whisper, and because it is faithful, it resolves in that direction. What you repeatedly embody becomes the measurement that collapses clouds of potential into concrete experience. Not because some cosmic judge likes your affirmations, but because resonance obeys itself. Tuning forks don't argue. They answer to the loudest coherence in the room, and your life, without scolding or praise, arranges around your baseline signal. This explains why thoughts alone can feel weak. Thoughts are sparks. Frequency is the current. Sparks illuminate. Current moves worlds. The leap beyond linearity is realizing that creation is less like pushing a freight train and more like stepping onto a moving walkway that was always under your feet, activated by the stance you assume. When the stance stabilizes, motion appears effortless, because the effort was never in moving matter. It was in becoming the measurement. Desire is often accused of impatience. But genuine desire, the one that arrives pre-cognitive, arriving before sentences, like weather felt on skin, carries its own completion. It isn't a tantrum for what is missing. It is the memory of a reality that wants to meet you. The mind later tries to manage it with timelines and tricks. But the desire itself came whole, like music. When you stop dissecting it, you can hear the song again. If the universe has a language, it is resonance. Two notes that match will amplify. Two notes that clash will cancel. This is not moral, it is mechanical. Alignment is not a trophy for the virtuous, it is a description of fit. When you fit the frequency of an outcome, the outcome fits your life, not because you deserve it more than someone else, but because physics is fluent in honesty. Vibrational alignment isn't about pretending, it's about congruence. Your inner map and outer motion telling the same story. When congruence stabilizes, attraction becomes continuity. You no longer pull the experience toward you. You live in the corridor. It already occupies. The hallway lights turn on as you walk, not because the building likes you, but because you've entered the wing where they are wired to glow. There are ways people speak about techniques, breath, stillness, attention, gratitude, but they are only nouns for a deeper phenomenon, the return to coherence. Coherence is what happens when the war inside stops, when the signal stops contradicting itself, when the story you tell and the story you are cease being separate genres, and publish. Gratitude is often misunderstood as politeness toward the cosmos. It's subtler and more exact than that. Gratitude is a frequency that says, already, not maybe later, not if I'm good, but already. When that tone stabilizes in you, the field recognizes a completed circuit, and reality organizes in response. Appreciation turns attention from deficiency to sufficiency, and sufficiency is the only climate where certain futures can grow. Resonance also clarifies why chasing signs becomes a carousel. The need to be reassured is the twin of the fear that it won't work. The more you run after feathers and numbers and sparks in the sky, the louder you confess that you're not yet home. Signs were never meant to be chased. They are confirmations left by a future you have already aligned with. They meet you on the path you're already walking. Here is the sketch beneath the art. Thought names, feeling imbues, state selects, reality resolves, thought names. It provides coordinates. It points your awareness toward a constellation, rather than the void. Naming matters because attention is causal. What you repeatedly illuminate becomes easier for the field to resolve around you. But a name without life is ink on water. So we come to feeling. Feeling imbues. It gives density to the name. It infuses texture, temperature, weight. The field doesn't read English, it reads tone. When the inner scene carries the tone of completion, the map thickens. Reality has something to grip. You could say, feeling is the difference between a sketch and a sculpture, the same outline, but now it can stand. State selects. This is the quiet lever. Your baseline state, what you keep returning to when the mind is busy elsewhere, is the ongoing measurement. It's the hands-free selection tool of reality. The state doesn't shout, it saturates. It says, "This is normal here." And the world replies, "Then let me be normal with you." The longer the state holds, the more the world conforms to its grammar. Reality resolves, not as magic trick, not as loophole, but as the normal obedience of a field to its cleanest instruction. Allowing is the word many use, but the essence is simpler. Remove the resistors, and current flows. The blueprint is unromantic in its precision. Name, imbue, select, resolve. The artistry is how unforced each part can become when contradiction dissolves. Surrender is not quitting. It is ceasing to manage what is already decided at the level of state. When you stop trying to mow the grass with scissors, you remember there is sunlight and time. You remember the lawnmower was never the sun. You remember that outcomes bloom in the climate you tend, not the speeches you give to the soil. What if becomes, "It is done," not as a declaration shouted at the sky, but as a subtle agreement, like gravity, assumed and therefore powerful. There is a myth that alignment means inaction, a couch in the clouds. But action born from alignment is not the same creature as action born from panic. One moves like a compass, the other stumbles like a clock running fast. When you are tuned, action shows up as a yes with legs. It doesn't argue with you, it appears as clarity, a phone call that feels like memory, a sentence that writes itself, a path that doesn't audition for your approval because it already matches your frequency. Inspired action is a phrase that suffers from overuse, but its bones are strong. It describes action that is compelled by design, not by dread. You recognize it by the absence of internal negotiations. You don't have to bribe yourself to do it. It isn't a rescue mission. It's the natural continuation of who you've already become. In that sense, action becomes nearly anonymous. You forget to praise yourself for doing it because it felt inevitable. The world leaves breadcrumbs. Call them synchronicities if you like. They are not tricks from an outside puppeteer. They are the geometry of a field rearranging around your stabilized state. When the inner circuit is complete, external events snap into place with unnerving precision. The right message arrives, doors unlatch in sequences you couldn't have scripted. Delays reveal themselves as choreography instead of punishment. None of this requires superstition. It requires coherence. Living in the already state is not denial of circumstances, it is refusal to worship them. You don't argue with what is, you refuse to let what is be the only speaker in the room. The already state lets today be a chapter, not a verdict. And because the field is exquisitely sensitive to baselines, the more normal already becomes, the more abnormal struggle begins to look. Eventually, effort feels like a foreign language you once studied, but no longer need to speak. In a city of glass towers and late night neon, two makers worked a few blocks apart. One hammered every day as if the world were a locked door. Their calendar screamed in fluorescent ink. Their jaw clenched so often they didn't notice anymore. When something didn't move, they pushed. When something cracked, they blamed the material and ordered more of the same. The other maker moved more quietly. On paper, they did less. In life, they seemed to do more. Meetings unfolded without tug of war. Emails read like agreements already signed. When asked for their secret, they shrugged, not from arrogance. "I stopped fighting the current," they said. "I started choosing the river." Months passed. The first maker grew louder, prouder, tireder. They collected anecdotes about how hard it is. They were not lying, their world obeyed. The second maker collected outcomes that looked like luck to everyone else. It wasn't luck, it was language. One spoke the dialect of force, the other the dialect of fit. Cities are fluent in both. So is the field. Which one hears you most often?